having to frog a finished piece isn't fun. Now it's become a bit chaotic because I've just been knitting on so much at the same time, and I have a really exciting update on the wedding dress. Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Oline and I'm a knitter from Norway, and welcome to my knitting podcast. Here I talk about all things knitting, my current project, finished project, planned projects, yarn, just anything that comes to mind while I sit here and chat with you all. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with me today. But before we get into everything I've been doing this week, I wanted to talk about what I'm wearing, and part of what I'm wearing I've also been working on this week. I'm wearing 2 knitted pieces today because it is a bit cold here still. Summer is not great here, so I'm just trying to make the best out of it and still wearing my summer pieces a bit. But I'm wearing my Agnete cardigan that I made very early in 2023, so this is a year and a half old now, and I still love it. I think it's so pretty with the brioche and the white. I think those really suit each other, and it's such a classy piece in my opinion. So I'm wearing that. This has no buttons because the fit of it, I like it better open, but this is it. The brioche, the white, I love everything about it, all of the small details with the increases and everything, and I think it's a great cardigan also to layer with other knit pieces, since it is, even with the brioche, it is quite like understated and doesn't really steal a lot of attention from whatever else I'm wearing. And the other knit piece I'm wearing today is what I'm going to talk the most about because that's what I made this week. But I also wanted to mention that I knit the Agnete cardigan in Drops Flora and Drops Kid Silk, I think both in the off-white color. But then we can move on to the piece I've knit on this week, and that is the Eikeblad top. This is it. It's finished now, but it's very likely not going to stay that way, because even though right now when I'm sitting down and you can only see the top of it and I'm also wearing a cardigan, I think it looks really good, and I think the top in itself looks really good. I love the pattern, I love the idea, I love the fit it's intended to have. But even though my gaze watch was right and everything was right, when I have finished this now and blocked it, my gauge isn't right, which means it doesn't really fit right. It is a lot looser here than it's supposed to be. It's supposed to have negative ease, which this really does not have, and that means it makes it just fit a bit weird. The straps are also a little bit too long, which means it sits really weird in the back. But I do really like this top, and I am test knitting it, and this is also my birthday camisole. I cast it on my birthday, so I really wanted to turn out perfectly. And even though I like it now, especially like this, when I only see like this part of it, because I really like square necklines, I really like it, but I just don't love it like it is now, and it's also not the way it's intended to be now, and I am test knitting it, so I will probably have to block this, no, not block it, frog it, and then do it all over again. And the upside of that is that I get to use the yarn twice and I get to do the pattern twice, and I really liked the lace work and everything, but also having to frog a finished piece isn't fun. But I think if it leads to me having a finished item that I love and that I get loads more use out of, it will definitely be worth it. And now that I see like how pretty this is and how much I like it, because this is like the part that actually fits. Okay, this is the only part that fits like it's intended to. And also I did talk about that last week, that this front cast-on in between the straps is a bit loose, and it is. It's supposed to cover the bra completely, and if it just was a little bit tighter it would. So I think also going back and fixing that would be great, but I'm just going to frog it all and do it again. And if nothing else, it has been a learning experience, but it does suck to have to unravel everything. I made this using Knitting for Olive merino in the antique lilac, and I did all of this with 100 grams. And last week I also talked about that I was a bit unsure about the length I was going to get with that, because my size calls for 150 grams, now I only had 100, and the top is intended to be a bit longer in the pattern, but that's also different tastes in how long you like your tops. And I have to say that I really like this length. As you see, it kind of meets my pants exactly where they end, and I really like that look. So even when doing it again, I'm probably going to stop there. I might have the ability to go longer since my gauge will be different and I will use less of the yarn in width, and then I can use more in length, but I don't really want it to be much longer. But yeah, this is a finished knit right now, and I am able to wear it, but it's just not going to stay this way. But having the ability now to look at it like this instead of like looking at it all, because I have kind of struggled figuring out if I like it or not at all. But now that I see just the part that kind of fits, I see that I actually really like this top, and that is really helpful to give me motivation to reknit this, frog it and reknit it, because I haven't had a lot of motivation to do that. But I see now that I am going to really like it once it's done, and I will be able to get a lot of use out of it if it actually fits right, which it doesn't do now. So I have a lot of newfound motivation to actually frog this and knit it now, and my hope is that since I've done it before, I'm familiar with the lace, I now know kind of what to look for and do, that hopefully this will go by a lot quicker the second time around, and maybe that this can be my main project, so I can just kind of crank it out while I still have motivation to do so. But yeah, that is a little update on it. I can show how the back is, just so you get an idea. Also, a part of the problem is that it is a lot shorter in the front now than in the back because of the straps being too long, and it also just sits a bit too low in the back. It's supposed to sit like pretty high up, but because the straps are too long, it either has to sit too far back down on my back or in the front, and it can't really be any lower than this in the front. So I have a lot to fix the second time around, but I think once it properly fits, it's going to be a piece that I really love, because I think the color is great and I really like the color on me, and I think the neckline is great, and I think the straps are great if they are a bit closer together. Just they are really great, and I really like this look. So I think I've said I think a lot now, but I really think and hope I'll love it and get a lot of use out of it in the end, and that means it's all going to be worth it, because I'd rather reknit a piece multiple times and end up with something I truly love and get loads of use out of than just crank out all of these different patterns, all of these different pieces, and then never really loving any of them. So I'm definitely going to do that with this one, but I wanted to give an update on it this week and to like show that it is finished now and talk a bit about that and the way forward, because this was like I intended to finish this to wear it for this podcast. It just didn't turn out as it was supposed to, but hopefully maybe I'll have it the way it's supposed to be next podcast, so I can show it off a bit better then. But so far this is my birthday cardigan, the Eikeblad top. It is by Knitting for a Friend. So that is the little update on this for now. I'm really happy that I blocked it without weaving in any ends, because that's going to make the frogging a lot easier. So but that is what I'm wearing, and then we can move into, I think I'm going to start with my finished knits this week, because I have spent most of my week just finishing knits. We can start with that and then move on to whips after. This week I got to knit a lot, even more than normal. I'd say I just had a lot of time to knit, and I was really able to also prioritize knitting in that time, so I have gotten through quite a lot. And the first thing I finished this week was this Sophie shawl. This was really close to being finished last time we spoke too. I just had like this tip left to do, which once I just sat down and did that, I think it took me like 15 minutes to do. So this was finished really early this week, and I love the look of it. I think this color is amazing, and this is alpaca wool, which it was my first time trying alpaca wool, and it's so soft and nice for a Sophie shawl as well. And it was such a joy to knit with as well, because it was just so squishy and nice and really soft. I have made the Sophie shawl before with Nepal, which definitely isn't as soft, so it was a pleasant surprise to knit with a yarn this soft. And as I said, the color is amazing. I really like this color, and I am really happy to have gotten started on Christmas gifts, because this is probably going to be a Christmas gift. And I have up on the shelf above this one that you can see, I have yarn for more of these, and that's probably going to be something I start knit on quite soon. But I have felt this week that I got so much done and I had so much time to knit that even though I love knitting and getting to knit a lot and finishing a lot of projects, I feel like lately I have just been jumping from one project to the next, and I don't weave in ends, I just jump to the next project. And I do that because I love knitting. I don't really love the other parts of it, but that also means that I feel like in my head now it's become a bit chaotic, because I've just been knitting on so much at the same time and then right after each other, and everything's kind of like jumbled together. So going forwards now, I want to try to take a step backwards, and like I am being quite intentional with what I knit, but trying to enjoy all parts of the process and just slowing down a little bit, take my time to weave in the ends when I finish a project, write down my notes in my written bullet journal, which I've been really bad at this year because I just want to knit. But I think for my knitting and for all of the chaos I feel around my knitting now, that it would be really good if I try to slow down a bit and like do more of the process around the knitting as well, and not just the knitting, because I feel like now that I've been doing a lot of the knitting and kind of not a lot of all of the other stuff, that everything is a bit chaotic. I struggle to like plan out my knits and know what to knit next. I struggle in the moment to figure out which of my active projects to work on. It's just harder to plan and figure out what to do with my knitting, because everything is so chaotic, because everything's kind of happening all at once. So I think it would be nice for my knits to get more of a like proper finish, so they're all finished, because now I have that basket of all of my kind of finished knits that kind of looms over me. So in this next week and the weeks going forward, I'm going to try to get through all of my knits that needs their ends weaved in, and just try to calm my knitting down a bit. Really, once I finish knitting a project, really finish it off in my mind as well, write down my notes, maybe take pictures of it, weave in the ends, do the buttons, like properly finish it, so it isn't like finished knitted but then still like looms over me, because I'm really starting to feel the effects of that. And I think this scarf or this shawl really reminded me of that, because it is such a quick knit, so I can crank out a lot of these quite quickly, but I still need to like respect the project enough to weave in the ends and give it like a proper finish. And yeah, I can't just keep knitting these fast projects and then moving on to the next, moving on to the next, moving on to the next, because then the like distinguishing lines between the projects kind of gets erased, and I want to remember all of my projects for themselves, and not just like this month I did all of this, but I want to remember each of my projects. So I'm going to try to be better at that again. I have been better before at doing written bullet journal for my knitting. I just have really slacked on that this year, and I find that doing it in writing too and not just online on Knit a Note really helps me stay like connected with my knitting much more. But enough on that, and back to more details on this. As I said, I did alpaca wool. I'm not quite sure of the color name, but it's like kind of mauve, old pink ish colored, and I used a bit less than 150 grams. I think I used like 130 around there, so I definitely had to tap into that third skein, and I think it is like the perfect length when you just want a shawl, when you don't want anything big. It ties easily around your neck 2 times, but without these tails being really long and this being too chunky. I have the biggest size myself, and then I have like a monster version as well, but I quite want a tiny version now too, that I've seen how like easy and small and like wearable this is, and I also really like the color, so it's going to be a bit hard to part with, but I think it's going to be a great gift for one of my grandmas. So that's the first project I finished this week. And then another project I finished this week I hadn't even started on last week, but sometime during this week I just really wanted to knit on something chunky, woolly. We've had really bad weather, it's quite cold now, and after having a warm period earlier this summer where I knit a lot of summery pieces, I just really have missed big woolly warm sweaters. So I decided to cast this one on, and if you've seen before, you might have seen the yarn up here that I used for this, and this is the Sunday sweater for my friend. I used Drops Air and Dale Kid Silk Erla, I think, both in blues. I know that the Air is called Peacock Blue. I don't know what the Kid Silk Erla is called, but both of them were quite similar blues, and that made this Sunday sweater, which I really love. I love the look of it, I love knitting it up, I love how cozy and chunky it is, and yeah, how fast it knit up. I thought this was going to take me a bit longer, but when I started and I got to knit on so big needles, I think it's 7mm needles, this just flew by, and I knit this whole thing in just 3 days. And I actually made a video on the process where I tried to see how fast I could knit it, but without like damaging my fingers or anything. My hands didn't hurt at all during the knitting of this, and I took breaks throughout knitting this as well, but because the needles are big and the yarn is chunky, it just progressed really quickly. I also made the modifications on the sleeve for the Sunday sweater because I didn't want balloon sleeves, because usually when I wear sweaters, so I think that's true for my friend as well, usually when I wear sweaters like this, it is because the weather is bad or cold, and that means I'm usually also wearing a jacket of some sort, either if it's a like raincoat or if it's a winter jacket, and I don't like balloon sleeves when I'm wearing jackets. They just it's just not great to have a bunch of extra fabric inside the sleeve of another jacket. So instead of doing increases throughout the sleeve, I just knit it straight, and then I figured out how many stitches I would need for the cuff of the pattern and decreased that and knit the cuff as the pattern said, but I just knit the sleeve straight, which I probably also saved a bit of yarn on. I did end up using just under 250 grams of drops air, and I used 110 grams of Dalu garn Kids Silk Erle. So it is quite a lightweight sweater for it being this warm and chunky. I have stolen it a bit and worn it a bit just because it was really cold the day I finished it, and it is so comfortable to wear and just so warm and cozy. So I hope my friend will be really pleased with this. I do have some leftover yarn, and some who saw the video where I made this said I should make one for myself, and I do want a sweater like this for myself, but I've also been knitting a lot for myself this year and years previously, and even though I don't have this a sweater like this, I don't have any really big chunky sweaters, my plan with the leftover yarn is to make matching sweaters for my friends' kids. I love family matches, as you probably know. I love matching with my son. I love when gifting stuff, making matches. I love knitting for my twin cousins because everything was matching. So that speaks a lot more to me than to make one for myself. And also both of these yarns are still in production, so I could get it at a later date when I've gone through more of my stash and make it for myself. But yeah, I would rather use the yarn in the same dye lot to make my friends' kids' sweaters, and I also think they would look really cute together, her and her two sons, with these matching sweaters. I don't know if I have enough of the air to make sweaters for all three of them. I have this one now, but I don't know if I have enough yarn for the two other sweaters, but I think I might be okay with getting another skein of the drops air, because when holding it with the kid silk, I don't think dye lot changes would be too noticeable, so I might do that. But I am pretty sure I'm going to use the yarn left over to make matches for her sons, just because family matches and matching knits really speak to me, and I think that's really beautiful and special, and I love doing that for my friends and being able to make matching knits for them and their kids. But that's another knit I finished this week, and I must say I do really recommend it. It does have quite a high neckline and there are no German short rows, so if you don't really like your neckline being up high like this, it might not be the pattern for you. If you kind of need German short rows to like a pattern, it's not the pattern for you. But if you are in the market for a chunky knit that has a bit of detailing that makes the yoke fun to knit, I would say this is definitely a great pattern. I've already influenced one of my friends to knit this for herself, so I do think it is a great pattern, and it's a beginner friendly pattern. For some of you it might not be the season to knit this, but it was a great kind of break from summer knits with lace detailing and on tiny needles and not that warm to knit, to just knit something woolly and warm and chunky, and I could almost use it like a blanket when knitting it up. It was a great break from summer knits, and I must say, even though I have been loving knitting more functional summer knits and figuring out what summer knits I really like and want to wear during summer, because this is the first summer I've managed to knit like regularly. The things I've finished have fit me well and I've felt good in them and I wanted to wear them. This right now is a fail, but I know it's going to get there, and that's been really fun this summer. But I also noticed that I really miss knitting sweaters. I am a sweater knitter through and through, and I'm really glad I live, where we don't have these huge long summers, because I miss my sweaters. I miss knitting sweaters, and even though the weather isn't great all the time, so I still get to wear a lot of sweaters. I also can't wait for fall and for all of the sweater knitting and sweater wearing and everything, and this was just a little taste of that, and I loved it. I loved knitting it up. I loved looking forward to fall, and just this really made me realize how much of a sweater knitter I am, because I had so much fun knitting this up, and now all I want to do is just knit more sweaters. But I also have a few summer knits I also really want to get to, and I also want to fix this, but I don't think I have that many more summer knits in me before I want to go 3 times sweater knitter again. But that is it for what I have finished this week. I think finishing 3 pieces in 1 week, where one of them you also started that week, is a lot. And as I said, I did get a lot of knitting time this week. My son was with my fiance, or our son was with my fiance a lot this week in the tractor, because that's all he wants to do, and that freed up a lot of knitting time for me. So I had a lot of fun knitting a lot, but this is definitely not a reasonable or regular amount. I can't do this every week because it is a bit much, and I did go a tiny bit crazy, but I really like having these weeks every so often. But that's enough for me babbling on, and I'll show you my whips because I have a really exciting update on the wedding dress. If you watched my podcast last week, you know I talked a bit about having a new tactic for working on my wedding dress, because I have kind of been slacking lately and not knitting that much on it, and just focusing on everything else I want to knit. And my new tactic was to knit 1 skein on the wedding dress, either the mohair skirt or the main wedding dress, per skein I finished on another project. And as you might have seen already, I have knit through a lot of skeins this week, and there are kind of 2 ways of counting it. And I've been doing both, because one is just counting the skeins that are finished, fully finished, and then there is one way that is counting the fully finished skeins and also counting the finished projects. So if I only count the skeins that I 100% finished, I finished 10 skeins. If I also count the finished projects, that counts as 13 skeins, and that is a lot of skeins to first knit on other projects and then knit on the wedding dress as well. That's a crazy amount. So I quickly realized that it will kind of be impossible for me to knit 1 skein on the wedding dress per 1 skein I knit on something else. But I've done my best this week, and as I said, I've had a lot of knitting time this week, so both how many skeins I knit on other projects and how many skeins I knit on the wedding dress is not really representative of a normal week. So this week I just knit too much on everything. But on the mohair skirt I knit 2 skeins on this, which did give me a fair bit of progress. I also put in, if I just find it, I put in a marker so it would be easier for me to see my progress, and I think I'm going to leave that there and put in a new marker this week so I can see like week by week how much I do. But that's the progress I made on this with the 2 skeins I knit on this. So I think like between 7 and 10 centimeters. This is not on the needle completely now because I had to steal the needle for something else, but these stitch stoppers that come with the C knit needles that I have are wonderful, and I have been trying the C knit needle for almost a month now with a variety of projects, both accessories, wedding dress, just chunky needles, small needles, everything, and I love them. They are great. I'm over the moon about them. Every time I know I'm able to use them for a project, I am so happy. So that's the update on my C-knit needle. I still really recommend them, and they're so great for the wide variety in sizes that my needle set has, from all the way from 2.5mm needles to 10mm needles. That is like all the needles I need. I never go below 2.5 and I never go above 10. So I am so happy with it, and it comes with all these different cables and a thing where you can connect 2 different cables, and it comes with stitch stoppers, and it's amazing. I've never had an interchangeable needle set before, and I'm so pleased with the one I got. But this is the mohair skirt now. It's really bunched up here because this is tiny, but I haven't been able to try it on yet this week, but I think everything is to a length where I can try it on, so I just need help to be able to try it on, and then I'm going to do that hopefully tonight. And I'll pop in pictures in the podcast so you can see what the wedding dress looks like now, both the mohair skirt and the main wedding dress. But for the mohair skirt I did 2 skeins, and since I knit so many skeins and everything else, I was tempted to just knit on this, because this is on 8mm needles and with 2 strands of mohair, which is about 225 meters, so the skeins go by a lot quicker on this one than on the main wedding dress. But the main wedding dress is what needs my attention most, so I had to like tell myself that it's not really about just knitting through the skeins, it's also about knitting on the wedding dress because it needs work. But that's this. That's not super exciting, but my progress on the wedding dress I think was great, because I did a lot on the wedding dress too, and the way I chose to count it, I did 3 skeins on the wedding dress, and then I've started on the 4th and the 5th. But the alpaca feuilleton I'm using is 400 meters, so it takes a long time to go through that on 4mm needles. But I did have 2 scraps of alpaca feuilleton that it wasn't a full skein, but it was like 2 separate skeins. So when I knit through both of those skeins, I counted it as having finished the skein, because it was finishing a skein, just not a full one. So I chose to also count it like that. But here as well, I put in a marker to show where I started off, and I've done a lot on this, even though this is on 4mm needles. This is where I've gotten the most done. I think this is like 15 centimeters, and that really turned this from not really looking like a dress to really looking like a dress. Of course it is on tinier needles than the skirt is big, but I think this is really starting to look like a dress now, and I think those 15 centimeters really brought me to a point where I can try it on now, and it will be hopefully below my hips. And yeah, I am really excited to try this on to see if I manage to even get it on, because I haven't tried it on since starting to knit the skirt. I'm just really excited about all of this and to see what it looks like with the skirt, but so far I think it looks really good. And it was really fun to challenge myself this week into knitting as many skeins on this as I did on the other. And if I only count the finished skeins and not the finished projects I did this week, the fully finished skeins, I did 10, and on the wedding dress I did 5, so I managed to do half as much on the wedding dress as on my other projects. But I also think that is fair, because on my wedding dress all of the skeins have so many meters, and on the other projects like this one, each skein is just 100 meters. On other projects the skeins just 100 meters, the air is 150, and the kids silk was like 300, so that's a lot. But that was also really chunky needles, so I think going forward that I'm going to modify my goal from being like the ratio 1:1. I'm going to change that into, for each skein on the wedding dress I can knit 2 skeins on something else, so I don't have to match it 1 by 1, but I can do like half on the wedding dress, because just doing half made me progress a lot. And my goal for the wedding dress is not to finish it as quickly as possible, and if each week is like this, it will be finished before I wanted to. I wanted to be finished like right before my wedding. I just don't want to have to stress like right before, so I want to knit so I know I'll be done in time, but I don't want to be done way ahead. If you understand, I want to like work on it as long as possible and get as many memories into it as possible, and that did not happen this week because this week I just knit on it, but that's also something to remember, just the week where I went crazy and knit a lot. But I don't want to knit this much on it every week, but I think this is a great way to make sure it gets knit on every week. And I think if I do it like that, where I do half as many skeins on this as on every other project, I will get a good amount of progress, just because each skein on both the mohair skirt and on this, each skein gives me so much progress. I think each skein of the sisu, for example, gives me almost 10 centimeters on this skirt, so I don't really have to go through that many skeins a week to get good progress. But I have to try it on now to see how much I have left, but there's still like months and months to the wedding and many weeks, so I don't need this much progress each week. But I think it was a good way to get back into it, because it was really fun to see it progress, and it got me to the point where I can try it on, which was a really important point to get to. And I also figured out if one skein is possible to do, and this week it was not. But I think like doing a skein on this every other skein will be great, and yeah, I'm really excited to see it and to see it grow. And also, who knows, now that I'm really into this, because this has been what I've been knitting on almost non-stop the last few days, because I didn't really start trying to catch back up until I had finished the Sunday sweater, and I didn't finish the Sunday sweater until like almost Wednesday, and then I started knitting on the mohair skirt Wednesday, and then this Thursday I think, and today is Friday. So the last few days I've only been knitting on this almost, and it's been really fun and really great. So now that I'm in like really into the pattern again on this, not that there is a pattern, but now that I'm really into knitting on this again, I might do that more. And also it was really great to have these to kind of show where I started the week off. It makes it a lot easier to see progress, and I think it's going to be really fun, like week by week too, to see how much I get done each week and to see the different like intervals between these. But yeah, that is the wedding dress now, and I am so excited to try it on. Of course this will have to be much longer, but right now I don't know if you can see. No, you can't. Can you see if I do it like this? Wait a second. Right now it is like that long. Can you see that? So I think it should be like right below my hips, and I'm not going to do any more increases. I just did the first few increases up here, so it's just knit on this until it reaches a good length. I have to try it on more times because I'm also a bit worried about the weight, because knitting is heavy. It's a lot heavier than like sewn fabrics, so I have to try it on to see how much the top can handle before it gets like way dragged out of shape. But right now it's not too heavy, so I don't know. I'm really pleased I went with the alpaca fellotråd because this is so light and has so many meters in it, and there is also some nylon in the sisu, which I hope helps with the weight bearing of it all. But I have to try it on now to see if it fits and to see how much I have left, and then every so often I have to try it on just to see how the dress handles the weight of it all. I don't think that will be a problem with this because kid silk is very light. I am also a bit further on this than I am on the wedding dress. If I hold them like side by side, okay, this is the top. So here you can see them kind of next to each other. So I have 10 to 15 centimeters more to go on these before they are the same length. But on the mohair skirt, I think I might want to do more increases. Not right now, but I have been thinking about doing an extra border of like a crazy amount of increases around my ankle or something, so it like flares out again, or a bit above my ankle, but so it's going to be like quite puffy up here, but so it like puffs out again at the bottom. I think I've seen dresses like that before. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but maybe if you have seen what I talk about you can understand. But it's going to be quite like big, but then right at the end it like flares out again. I think that could be cool, at least for like spinning around. Then that is what this is going to be the best for, and I think this will be just be a like cool addition, and it's going to be removable, and then this is going to be like the main one that's like more classic, I would say. I still have all of these ends to weave in at the top. Maybe I'll weave in these when I weave in all of the other ends I want to start weaving in. But I have weaved in all of the ends on like one side of the top, and then the other side I have not. But I have been quite good at weaving in the ends on the wedding dress. Actually, it's just the back here with one of the straps, and then I think one end down here where I started the skirt. So that is it. I'm really excited to try it on. Hopefully my fiance will get home while it's still daylight today, so we can try it on and get some pictures of it, because I really want to see how it's looking now. And I want this to be a long-lasting whip, but I got really motivated now, and even though I wanted to be a long-term whip and I wanted to be on my needles right up until like right before my wedding, I'm really eager to see if everything works out and how the weight works out and how the top works out, if I would want to add sleeves to it. There's still a lot I don't know, so I also just want to finish it as quickly as possible to figure out all of those questions. But as I've been working on this, I've also noticed that I think better while working on it, and I figure out how I want things to be as I'm working on it, and not really when I'm trying to think or plan. So I think I just have to knit on it, go with the flow, and the decisions I've made going with the flow so far have been great, and it's turning out a lot different than the thing I had in mind like before I started. But I am more pleased with this than I was, and it still has like those main details I really wanted, with the cables and the, I don't know if you would call it a corset, but like the tie in the back and the cable for the straps. And also, that's another thing, I think I might have to start learning embroidery soon, because I also want to embroider the top of this. It's very plain right now, it's just plain stockinette, all of it. But I don't know if I want it on the skirt as well, but I'm pretty sure I want embroidered flowers on the top of the wedding dress. I think I want them in the same yarn, so it's more of like a texture thing than like color difference. But I've seen some pictures of people doing embroidery like that, and I really like it. So I'm thinking like more crowded. The hair flowers are more crowded, more tight together here, and then maybe they can fade as you go down and into the skirt, and they can also be on the skirt but then like further apart. That might be cool, but I don't know how to embroider. I think my sister does, but I think she knows how to embroider on like fabric and not on knit fabric, so that will also be a learning experience. I think I'll have to do a swatch with my yarn and try to do it on that to see how I like the look as well. If I don't love the look with it being like totally monochromatic in the same yarn as the dress, I have also considered doing it in the kid silk from this one to kind of tie this one into the main wedding dress. But I'm not going to do trial and error on the wedding dress. I think I'm going to make just like big square fabric swatch to try that out on, but that is maybe also something that I need to start working on soon. So with the wedding dress, it's not just that I need to like work on it in terms of length. I also need to figure out some of the side details, but I remembered now that I also want embroidery, so that's probably something I need to look into soon, just so I can learn how to embroider. If you have like any tips on how to embroider on knit fabric, any tutorials that are your go-to, if you also know like flowery embroidery, I don't know what it's called, patterns for embroidery, like flowery ones, I would love suggestions for that as well. But yeah, that is the wedding dress. I'm really excited about it. It has not gotten a lot of attention in the last few weeks, but now it is, and I think I'm going to continue giving it some attention now, because now I'm really into it, and I just need to figure out a few things. So I think I'm going to continue knitting on this main part, because I think a lot better when knitting on it, and then I'm going to write out everything I thought about while knitting on it, and start to do some research and figure out how to do the things I want to do. But that is the wedding dress so far. So I know some of you were getting a bit stressed with how little I was knitting on the wedding dress, so I hope this helped calm your nerves a little bit. I think it helped calm mine. I just also realized just now how many other things I also wanted to do. I just need to write a list so I don't remember everything. But that was the wedding dress, and I also had one last cast on just because I just needed another cast on, and I needed something else to knit on than the wedding dress, because I have been finishing projects left and right this week, so the wedding dress was my only whip, and while that was great for me working on it, I also want to have another whip that I can travel with and knit on, because there is a lot more thoughts and things going on when I'm knitting on the wedding dress. So I wanted a more mindless knit, and I craved the Anker sweater, so that's what I cast on for my son. I'm also trying to be better at knitting for him. I've been knitting for a lot of babies lately, and then when I stopped doing that, I have knit so much for myself. My goal this year, as last year, was to knit one project for myself each month, and I just counted through everything I've been knitting for myself, and I think I counted to 10 quite big items I've knit for myself. So it's definitely my son's time to get some sweaters, and the Anker sweater is a great sweater when I'm craving something mindless. And I have almost finished the yoke. I think I have the raglan increases left to do, but I've finished all of the ribbing segments. I'm knitting this in Topp's Lima in the color chalk. I love Drops Lima for my son's Anker sweaters. It isn't as soft as the merino wool, but when I make Anker sweaters, they usually turn into his work sweaters when we work at the farm or tractor, just outside working things, and I really like Lima for that. It's a bit warmer, a bit sturdier, and I really also like the colors of Lima, and I have a lot of Lima in my stash. So because of all of that, I'm knitting him a sweater in Lima. And I have finished the first skein, so this is also one of the 10 skeins that I finished this week. I think this is going to be like my mindless knit, so I'm probably going to be knitting on this a bit this week as well. So this week I'm going to unravel this and start knitting it again, knit on my wedding dress, so I can figure out what I need to write down on my to-do list to do on that. And then this is going to be my mindless little gift to myself. We're also in the month where my son has his birthday. Yeah, his birthday is towards the end of the month, but I still hope I can finish a few more knits for him. I also know I have a few of his knits in the basket with all of the things that needs their ends weaved in, so hopefully I'll finish a good amount of knits for him so I can gift him that. He does really love knitting, so I hope he'll like that as a birthday gift as well. But so far this is I think I've finished maybe like 2 or 3 pieces in the next size, and he's about to grow out of a lot of his knits, so I really need to get going on that as well. But this progressed really quickly. I think this is 1 day of knitting, so I'm really excited to have Anker back on my needles. I think it's been more than a year since the last time I knit one of these for my son, so I'm excited to have this pattern on my needles again. It's one of my favorites, and it's a pattern I go back to again and again and again, and I also really like it in this color. I think the chalk color in the Lima is really nice. It's almost like marzipan but a bit cooler toned maybe. But yeah, that is my last whip. There's not a lot of exciting things to say about it because I have just started. But these 3 projects are probably going to be what are going to be my whips the next week. Maybe I'll even get to cast on a second item for my son, but that is going to be the plan for next week, and to hopefully knit once again on the wedding dress for every 2 I knit on everything else. That is everything I had for this week. If you enjoyed this week's episode, please leave a like and a comment. That means the world to me. And if you want to see more from me, please subscribe. Bye!